Welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I feature Olympians, CEOs, disruptors, authors, professional athletes, and the best of the best, where they share their stories of resilience with my lens on leadership and culture. Let's get started. Greetings and welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. 3 things you will learn from this episode. Number 1, why hitting rock bottom can provide incredible wisdom and the groundwork for success. Number 2, some private investments you should absolutely avoid. And number 3, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Damion Lupo is a seasoned entrepreneur who has launched and grown over 70 companies from $0 to $100 million throughout a remarkable 25-year journey. In addition to being a prolific author with 12 published books, Damion is celebrated for his extraordinary achievements in building multiple companies from the ground up, many of which have reached 7, 8, and even 9-figure valuations. Despite a significant setback that saw him lose a $20 million portfolio at the age of 30, Damion's resilience and determination led him to not only overcome homelessness, but also rebuild his wealth beyond 9 figures. Today, he is a driving force in transforming the retirement landscape with his groundbreaking retirement plan system and revolutionizing the home and apartment construction industry through his pioneering work with Frametec. Welcome to the show, Damion. So happy you're here.
Thanks, Lyndsay. I'm super excited to be here.
Well, great. So I start every show the same, and I always ask, and you have a pretty exceptional one at that, but can you tell us a little more of your story?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny when I look back, these, you mentioned the 70 companies. I couldn't help myself. I remember in college, it's sort of the origin of kind of a big boy story. It's when I launched my own version of Amazon. And it was because I was really irritated about college and how they seemed to rip everybody off. And so I thought I could do better. And I went out and started a bookstore on campus in my dorm room. And I put the bookstore out of business on campus, and they got really pissed and threw me out of school. They said, "You can't do that." And I said, "I am doing it." Paid for school in a week, and then they threw me out. And it was a really cool opportunity for me to realize that I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not just going the traditional path was literally fighting my soul.
Yeah.
And that led into real estate. And I was very excited about doing real estate, did the seminars, read the books, did the thing, made millions of dollars, and then watched 2008 crush me and went from zero to hero, or from hero to zero, or all 3. And then ultimately that led to being homeless and losing a $25 million portfolio in a very short period of time. So it was an incredible cycle to go through very quickly. And it really ended up being the foundation for everything that's happening today. But in the moment, it sucked ass. It was terrible. It was cold in northern Arizona in January, being homeless after driving a Ferrari 18 months earlier. It was pretty humbling.
Yeah, I have to imagine. So, the first thing we said that we were going to talk about on this show was, how that hardship gave you wisdom and gave you the necessary, chutzpah to get out of that hole. So talk a little bit about that journey, because going from Ferrari to nothing is extremely humbling, terrifying, and not something I hope many people of our audience have dealt with. But how'd you find yourself in it and climbing out of it?
It's funny. I think part of the cool thing is I had a little bit of a reference because I had read Donald Trump's books, his Art of the Deal and Art of the Comeback. And Art of the Comeback was when he was $900 million in debt. And I was like, well, shoot, I've only lost 25 million and I'm 5 million in debt. So this is nothing. Trump did way more, and then he came back. And so having the perspective of somebody else's experience was incredibly valuable. It also gave me a perspective on when you lose money, usually you don't die. And I think a lot of times, and I certainly had the fear, if I lose money, I'm going to lose respect. People are going to judge me. It's my self-worth was tied up in my net worth, which is where most people are, whether they realize it or not. Unconsciously, we totally want people to see us as successful. The significance factor in our worth is really, it's baked into every human. It's part of those human needs. And on the other side of this, after having gone through the cycles of pretending it didn't happen, then blaming everybody, I realized that this was an important lesson for humility and for really deciding what my rules were about life and business, and also coming up with a mission that was more than just money. And it's almost cliche because a lot of people go, yeah, I've heard that. It's not about the money. But I can tell you, everybody hears that, but everybody wants to go try it out anyway. They all want to have the money and then let you know if it's not really about the money. And I just think we're all on course to a course correction. if we're not willing to look at why versus just what. The what is the money. Why has to be more than just the money. If what and why are both the money, you're in deep crap. And
Yeah,
that's
I
what I
agree
had
with
to
that.
learn.
You hit on something that I feel pretty strongly about, and that is the definition of success being more than just money. And I think that is becoming a conversation that's more common. But certainly in the corporate world, your title, your advancement up the ladder, your paycheck, that is generally speaking how you measure success. When you get into the entrepreneurial world, it's a little different. I mean, you could publish a book, you could do a podcast, you can achieve, awards and recognition. And it's different that way. So can you just talk a little more about what you're just saying a moment ago about how it can't just be about the money. It's got to be about more than that.
I think what I've learned is that as an entrepreneur, what's most important is creation. It's being more of an artist than a money gathering squirrel. And when I was doing money gathering squirrel maneuvers for a decade, it's, there's an outcome. It's never enough. And I thought this is the path until I got course corrected. But it's really understanding that there's got to be something deeper that's not just about your own attainment of things. It's really about other people. When it goes external versus internal is about getting it for you. When it's external, it's serving other people. That was the big shift. And the moment I really got that was in 2013 when I was having this final conversation with my dad right before he passed away. And he looked at me and he was 73 years old. And he said, there were so many things that I wanted to do in my life. And then he just stopped and we both cried. And it was because he was out of time. And I realized, wow, it didn't matter. It wouldn't have mattered how much money he had. There were things that mattered deeply to him about connecting and contributing because he was brilliant, but he didn't do those things. He didn't really serve his purpose that he knew he had. And so missing out on his potential, which we all have, and our potential is not about zeros in the bank. It's about other things. It's about impact. And that was the moment where I said, okay, I got to figure this out and I got to help other people see this too, because hell on earth is getting to the place where you have the moment of regret because your life is less than it could have been. And seeing that firsthand and feeling that was really the moment where I said, okay, the next half of my life or the next third is going to be way different than the previous 3 decades.
Yeah, I love that you said that. We've had a few guests on the show that they have literally been at the bottom, and the way that they came out of the top was by helping others. And whether it was sobriety or business or financial advice, like all of those things matter. And when you have a direct impact on other people, it keeps you accountable, it keeps you humble, but it also, drives you to do more and serve more. So I love that you said that. So let's shift a little and talk about investments, because you've created this retirement path and you've learned a few things. So what are some things that people should be thinking about? We have a wide range of ages that listen to this show. So, can you give a little sampling of things that they should avoid and maybe things they should really be thinking about financially?
I think one of the greatest lessons that I've learned over the last half century is that the more you're actively engaged in investments, the more that you're going to feel like you have control. And so an example of that is people that have money in mutual funds and they're like, I got this pile, but I have absolutely no idea what's going on. I don't really know what's in there. I have no control. I have no connection. It's just this brokerage statement that is maybe more or maybe less each month. We don't know. And what I've noticed from the community at eQRP, all these people that have self-directed retirement accounts, they've shifted their philosophy towards ownership, responsibility, and wanting to be a part and connected to investments where they're actually learning and they're growing as human beings. Because once you learn about investing firsthand by doing it, by being really intimately involved, you can never lose that. You could lose your money in a mutual fund, or you could be afraid of losing it. But the problem is, if you lost it, you don't have time to make it back up. If you lose money and you're active and you actually have the muscle around investing, you can go recreate it. It's a very different level of confidence and certainty and security, if you will. The money isn't the security. The confidence you build up and the muscle you build around that because you're doing things is a different deal. It just takes energy and time. And that's where most people are like, I'm too tired. But My favorite example of this is, look, things go away if you don't engage them. It's the law of entropy. If you don't put energy, like, can you imagine passively if you said to your partner, okay, I'm just going to lay here, now do me? Like, that is not going to lead your partner to wanting to stay with you. You've got to actively participate. So people say, I want passive income. And I go, your investments are going to go away if you're not active. Same as your partner is going to go away if you just say, hey, lay, like what that, yeah. We've got to think about things about investing our time and energy into things that matter. And that's universal.
Yeah, I agree. And I think in order for you to learn, being hands-on, you will learn a lot faster than being at the mercy of someone else. And I think the financial world can be very intimidating to people, especially when they don't understand it. So, what's a good starting point for people that maybe are younger listeners who are just starting out? I have twin 16-year-olds who could probably use some advice, and a broke son, so who does not have a job. So let's start with, what would we tell our younger listeners? What's something that they should do and something they should avoid?
Take a look at the people that are around you, your peers, and the people that you're listening to, people you're spending time with. One of the great hacks is you can change your life by simply being around people that are already where you want to be, because you'll naturally start becoming them. You'll start doing the things they do. You'll start thinking the way they think. You'll start talking the way that they talk. And instead of you trying to figure it out with people that don't know, it's like the line leading the deaf. Like, nobody really knows what direction to go. We're all stumbling around together. The biggest hack is being around people that are naturally going to lift you up and pull you up, instead of trying to keep you down where they are. And that's unfortunately where most people are. So how do you do that? You go out there and you look around and you say, okay, if I'm focusing on my money, if I'm focusing on investments, I'm going to go look for rich people. I'm going to go look for people, not that inherited a bunch of money, but literally people that went from zero to where I want to be. And then you attach yourself, and that's maybe online, it's maybe masterminds, whether you're 15 or 55, there's people out there that are sharing. Now, the biggest thing you got to do is you find them, and then you make sure that they're not full of crap. There's a lot of charlatans that are out there preaching about money that have not actually made any money. They're just selling products. Sure. That's the thing that you got to be careful of, because unless you're just going to go do the same thing, which is a lot of what people are doing, they're like, hey, look, I make a lot of money selling financial products, but I don't actually how to build a business. Yeah. So it's about finding people that you can put yourself around, and then being willing to cut some people out of your life that are consuming your time, that are keeping you where they are, not where you want to go. That's the biggest hack I know of.
Well, and I think that's good advice for no matter where you are in your career or your life. So for our mid to late career folks, what are a couple pieces of advice we'd give them?
I think it's really you just have to be really careful about where you're spending your time. What I've noticed is when I hear people asking for raises, I hear people, whether it's employees or just people at a bar, I hear them talking about the struggles, and then I say, well, show me your calendar, show me your credit cards. I can tell you everything about your life and where you're going based on what is on your calendar and what you're spending money on. If I don't see personal development programs, if I don't see seminars, if I don't see books, but I see Netflix, Hulu, and all these other things, and on your calendar, I see sports events and I see other things that are just making you a zombie, I know exactly where you're going. So the question is being reflective. And if you can't see it, go hire a coach. Even if you have to hire a coach for an hour, you can have a coach give you all that feedback. So sometimes we just can't see our stuff. That's why every top performer in the world in anything has a coach, because we can't see ourselves swing. And that's the greatest investment you can ever make. It's not real estate. It's not the stock market. It's the investment in your own clarity and your own future. That's the place where people should be putting their money. It's people go, should I buy a Bitcoin? Should I buy real estate? I'm like, no, you should buy your future. Go buy a commitment to your change to create that future. Make it by design. That's where you should invest.
Investing in yourself is always a good idea. So at the top, we said, just because you can doesn't mean you should. What did you mean by that?
Years ago, I was listening to Robert Kiyosaki, who's written many purple books, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was around him. I was physically in seminars, talking with him, and I remember he kept saying, you got to stop saying you can't afford something. You just say, how can I afford it? And I thought that's brilliant, because our brain will figure out whatever you put in. It's the question. We've got this supercomputer on top of our shoulders, and so I started asking the question, how can I afford all these things, which led to buying a Ferrari, which led to all sorts of crazy things, this lifestyle. And it led me to doing business activities to make more money. So the how can you, if you're driven and you've got half a brain with an IQ more than a houseplant, you're going to be able to figure things out. The problem is, on the other side of this, at the end of 2000, the 2000s, when I lost everything and more, I asked the question, well, should I have been doing those things? And the reality was I shouldn't have been doing a lot of the things. I was only asking, how can I? And human beings are really good at creating solutions. So that the should I is really about the why. Is there a compelling reason to go do this thing? I made a million or two or five, and I'm spending all my money or all my time to make more money. Should I be doing that? Is a Ferrari going to help me with my life? Is it going to help me make an impact on more people, or is it going to get me arrested more? Like, you have to ask these questions, and that was I ask that all the time now. Should I be doing this? Just because I can doesn't mean I should. Just because I can go spend $1,000 on a bottle of wine, should I do that? It's like those questions are really helpful. It doesn't mean you should shut down. It's a really useful self-reflective process to get to the truth of your decisions versus the hedonistic approach to getting more.
Well, and I think people can get a little wrapped around the axle when it comes to the abundance mindset and what you're saying. Um, can we separate the two? Because abundance mindset and spending money on things you don't need are not the same thing.
No, I'll tell you that the greatest example I've had for my own life with the abundance mindset, it used to be how much. It was like I used to think about $1 billion, and I'd go, okay, how am I going to get $1 billion? I was like, okay, I'm going to go create companies and I'm going to do investing and blah, blah, blah. When that shifted after my dad's death, there was a shift. How could I serve 1 billion people? And what's interesting is when you really start to figure that out, one, you're not going to do that in your neighborhood. You're not going to serve 1 billion people. You have to think bigger. So the abundance is about thinking about a bigger impact on the world, and it forces you to evolve as a human. And the craziest side effect that we've all heard in some form is that the money shows up as a side effect, and it's more money than you're so busy creating impact, so busy fulfilling your purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about passion here, Lyndsay. I'm really talking about purpose, because you can be excited about something and the world doesn't care. It's really about why are you, because purpose can be tough, and going through that process, shifting gears into how am I going to help 1 billion people break out of their financial shackles and be financially free. That changes everything about your spirit. It changes everything about your life, your experience on life, on this planet. And that's been the biggest shift for me. And I think that for most people, thinking bigger beyond yourself will change everything.
Yeah, I agree with that. So what inspires you, Damion?
The potential, the potential that when I wake up, I'm thinking I'm here. Okay, I'm not here by accident. There's a purpose for this. There's an obsession, and it gets me excited. Like I woke up this morning at 1:50 in the morning, and I was like, man, I've been asleep for 4 hours. This is not good. This is not human, but I'm up and I was ready. I was thinking, and I thought, what? Okay. But it's just because I'm so excited about what I'm doing, building things, working with people, changing the world. And I'm not just going through motions. It's really about solving problems and envisioning things and helping make literally the future better. It may sound cliche, but it's really why I almost get frustrated sleeping, because I get so
Not
excited
enough
about what
time
I'm
in the
doing.
day, right?
No, this like, I want extra hours to create more. And it's funny because sometimes I'll hear people say, well, I know you want more time, you don't feel like there's enough time. If you had an extra day, you'd probably just go work. And I'm like, yeah, because I love it. I love building. Like I'm kind of an ant. I think all humans have a piece of that. We want to build things. We want to build people and families and businesses, and we like to build things. And when we shift oftentimes into a place of consumption, a part of our spirit dies. It's why the average man is dead within 3 years of retiring, because he's not. I mean, this is statistics with Social Security.
Yeah.
The average male is dead in 30 months. And that's because a lot of our purpose is in the work. And I think it's always important to have something that matters that we're creating for other people.
Yeah. I'm wondering, I think, at least my observation is that the definition of retirement is changing. And I think what seems to be fading a little bit is the idea of, okay, I'm done. And now I can just relax. And most of the people I surround myself with are, okay, I'm going to stop working here so I can do more work on the things that I love. And whether that's gardening or traveling or collecting people, there are so many things that I think are ahead of you, and versus the American idea of, okay, I don't have to work anymore, so now I can just relax. I think that's what kills you early. That's just my perspective.
It truly does. You got to have something meaningful, like something that you're engaging in.
Yeah.
One of the things that's true is that things are either growing or dying. The universe is expanding or contracting, and humans are no different. If either we're growing, whether we're learning something new, we're expanding, we're gardening, we're building something, whatever it is, or we're truly dying. And if you're listening and you're thinking, my vision is to be on a beach and have pina coladas for the next 10 years, or golf, and that's going to be my life, you're probably not going to have a very long, most likely a very long or very interesting experience. Because the universe, and you see this over and over, when the universe realizes or decides, or you decide that you're done contributing, it's really looking at you as a consumption mechanism, and it's done. Exactly. It's done with you. And then you're gone. We all need that deep something that matters. And without it, I think we're running out of time.
So speaking of purpose, what would you like your legacy to be?
I think the legacy is chewing up every second and every minute with something meaningful. And on the other side of that, being able to be at the end and looking back and saying, that was spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
None of this regret, none of this I wish I'd done. We don't regret the things that we do. I mean, we generally regret the things we didn't do. We ask, what if? And if you look back, we all realize that the things that we did were learning opportunities. The problem is a lot of people look at them as from a victim's perspective, and we go, oh man, I wish that hadn't happened. And I look back and I go, I'm glad everything happened, because it led to now. And so the legacy is living that. It's being an example of that to the best of my ability, to be mindful that people are going to watch and they're going to model. And if they're going to model this, I don't want to be a warning. I want to be an example. And so therefore it's important for me to make decisions every day where I'm proud of people modeling and saying, okay, I'm going to do what you did, and I'm going to learn from your dumbness. Like, I've paid a dumb tax, and it's great for me to pay it and you to not pay it. And then do your own dumb things and pay your own dumb tax, and then other people can learn from that. But we all don't need to pay the same dumb tax.
That's our responsibility as humans. If you've made some wretched mistake, prevent some others from doing the same thing. It's not hard.
It's funny because you look at kids. I mean, any parent is like, why won't they listen to me? They want to touch the hot stove and burn themselves. And it's like, why? We're wired to be curious. Like, that is great as humans. It doesn't mean you have to touch every version of a hot stove. It means that there's some, and there's this insight that people have at some point in their lives, if they're lucky, is that you leverage other people's experiences and you don't have the same ones all yourself. You do need to have some of them. Otherwise, you're going to sit there and go, well, everybody's had the experiences. I think it's a balance, and it's a humbling thing to acknowledge other people, and also being willing. One of the things people do is they want to avoid everything. And I think when you embrace going through things and learning, and then sharing those and leveraging other people, I think that's the fast track, and that's the ticket.
Mm-hmm. So what's next for Damion?
It's more of Frametec. It's building this disruptive machine that's disrupting and solving the housing crisis, disrupting construction. It's really meaningful because it's something that there's such a deep problem. Like, people, what's frustrating to me is watching my employees and people that would love to have a home. They can't afford things. They're going to be renting the rest of their life, and they really do want to own their own place. Sure. And I see this problem in the market, and being able to build something, being a part of it. I mean, by no means I can't even figure out our equipment, because we have all this equipment that's in German and Swedish, and it's having this incredible team that's building this solution that's going to help solve the housing crisis and do it nationwide, help to push prices down and give people more housing, which we desperately need. So it's not about beyond, for me, it's not what's next beyond that. That is the focus. It's such a big thing that if I was to say, well, I've got 5 other things, I think people would probably look at me and go, well, you're not really serious about Frametec. And everything is that one thing right now. And that's something that's I think people should think about, is that's not a balanced life. That's a seasonal part of my life. It's where this is an obsession, and this is where my energy goes. And it won't be the only place that I put my energy forever. But right now, everybody that's involved is thinking the same way, and we've poured ourselves into this. And that's why this is going to change the world.
Well, I hope it does. It's desperately needed. So how can people find you?
Best place to find me is Turnkey Retirement. And that's the place where, like, I wrote a downloadable book. It's the 10 steps to 10 million. And you find, taking that, it's a little piece of my brain. It's my experience of going from 0 to millions to 0 and negative, and then going back to 10 million, and then building something that's now worth $1 billion over the last few years. it's the steps that I've thought through and that I've seen over and over again. And so really what I'm doing is I'm saying, if you want to be free, you have to grow yourself, and you're not going to do it by bumping into $1 million. You got to find a way to expand yourself, and 10 million, you can't bump into 10 million. You can bump into $1 million, but 10 million requires you to think differently. And and there's a process, and there's nobody that can't do it, regardless of whether you have a 5th grade education. I mean, truly, it's about saying, okay, I'm going to leverage off of somebody and somebody's that have already done this. There is the formula. Within 10 years, anybody can go from wherever you are to 10 million. I promise there's a process, and turnkey retirement is my way to share that with the world.
I love it. Well, we will put the link in the show notes and give people access to that. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being a great guest, Damion. I learned a lot. And guys, if you liked what you learned from Damion and our other shows, please go subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a 5-star review at Apple or Spotify. They are so meaningful to creators like me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for a great episode. Get out there and lead with heart. Have a great day, everybody. Are you ready to elevate your leadership style and create an exceptional workplace that stands out from the crowd? I'm here to introduce you to a game-changing resource that will transform the way you lead and shape your company culture. It's time to embrace the power of top-down culture. This practical guide empowers your leadership for lasting success, helping you create a workplace where everyone thrives. Get top-down culture today, and let's reshape the future of leadership together. Thanks for listening to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or consider leaving a 5-star review and a great rating at Spotify or Apple. Thank you so much for your support. Have a great day.